Daniel chapter 2, the section is verses 1 through 49. Obviously, we're not going to go through all of that. We're going to take it bit by bit and try to get a better understanding, and I think it'll be helpful for you. If it's a little boring because some of it is kind of, that kind of information, I apologize, but sometimes that kind of learning is necessary. Then you get to the application, okay? So just be patient with me. All right, so Nebuchadnezzar's dream is what happens here. Nebuchadnezzar is the king of the Babylonians, and he's an absolutely brilliant fruitcake, if that explains what kind of guy this is. He is an absolute nut job, but he's awesome at what he does, okay? Sounds like somebody that would run for... I'm just going to stop right there. Anyway, all right. So, we have a dream. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 2, I'm going to share that with you. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He had dreams, plural. His spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. Okay? So he's having these dreams to the point where they're disturbing him. It's not like a comfortable dream, okay? Like, I was doing some work with a couple guys this week, and we were finishing out a basement. And I literally had a dream right before I woke up, about 5:30. Before I woke up, I had a dream that I showed up at the job site, and it was all done. And I was high-fiving the other guys, and it was a greatest dream. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to carry their drywall down to the basement, much less have to hang it all. And I'm like high-fiving, and we're like, there's this cool music in the background, like a 70s cereal commercial, you know what I mean? Like, da, 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 da. And I'm high-fiving, and we're like, yes, right? And then I wake up. Didn't happen. So the dream was cool, reality was terrible, okay? The opposite's here. The dream is horrible to the point where he doesn't want to go forward with life, with understanding, with movement. He's in lockdown mode because something very terrible has happened in his dream. And he takes it serious. He doesn't think, I shouldn't have drank that coffee before I went to sleep. Or, apple pie does that to me. It was like, there's something alerting me to a major problem, okay? So he's aware, and what does he do? He doesn't understand it. He has guys on payroll to do this. And it lists out all these different people. Let's go through this. He summons his magicians, okay? Maybe you've heard the word diviners, people that can speak to the gods, if you will. A word used for dream interpreters at the Assyrian court, and in the Old Testament for magicians of Egypt, whom Joseph proved superior. If you remember the story of Moses, do you remember that? When Pharaoh called his men in to duplicate the miracles that Moses was performing to prove who was the truest God? Often as Christians, we believe that we're the only people that have special insight to God's plan. That is not true. If we believe what the Bible teaches us about God, we have to believe what the Bible teaches about the enemy. We have to believe that. We have to believe that. There are people on this planet that can tell you your future. And I'm not talking about Madame Cleo from Jamaica or whatever. Who was the singer that had the hotline years ago? When you actually had to call on a phone, you couldn't just look up on your app. You know what I'm talking about? Dionne Warwick. Do you remember Dionne Warwick's? You could call 1-800, what's your story? And you could call someone, and this woman with dreadlocks would be like, yes, you're going to blah, blah, blah. Not that I called, but I have a feeling that's kind of what it was like. I did call some other phone lines when I was a kid. Won't go into details there. Got in a little bit of trouble, okay? Trying to figure out what that was. If you want to ask after church, and it can't be one of your text questions, but I'll talk to you in person about that. It was actually quite a funny story. My mom didn't think so, but it was really funny. And it was one of the few times I was actually innocent. It's a hilarious story. I'll be happy to share it with you, but probably not right now, okay? Anyway, Madame Cleo could tell you your future. That was a joke, and it was a ripoff, and I think they got sued and a lot of stuff like that. But listen, I wholeheartedly believe there are people on this planet who have special giftings to do that kind of stuff. I really do. And they're not Christians, and they don't love Jesus, and they take advantage of people, but they're right. There are some creepy things going on in this world, and you can't deny it. Medicine men on the weird side. There's some legitimacy to this, okay? These guys that are predicting future and having dreams and interpreting dreams, it's a reality. So we can't just say these guys were fake. They wouldn't have been in his court if they would have never proved themselves the ability to do this. You understand that? And these guys, often when we think about this kind of stuff, we think these people are just a bunch of wackadoos, like, "Rrr." This guy, Nebuchadnezzar, was brilliant. He wasn't just a monster, like I said last week, eating turkey legs, telling people what to do. The guy had a brain. The guy had a mind. The guy had the ability to lead thousands upon thousands, armies, government. He was able to just move things in an amazing direction. So it's crazy. So don't let that be playing in your head that this is all just a bunch of nonsense. It's not. It's legitimate. And people with evil spirits and the ability to communicate with all these different demons and things have the ability to see things. And that's why these guys had these jobs. The other ones that were involved were conjurers. They were, as a common Babylonian term for those who were skilled in interpreting signs in people who were ill, performing rituals to promote healing. So he brought those guys in as well. Sorcerers, of course. You got to have your sorcerer hanging around. Chaldeans is a general word to describe the group as a whole, but it was also anyone who practiced the magical and astrological arts. Do you remember when baby Jesus was born? Anybody remember that? I mean, you weren't there, I know, but you got the postcard. Baby Jesus was born. Who were the people that showed up? Right? You've heard the story about 3 wise men, right? It actually wasn't 3 wise men. There were just 3 gifts, but there were, some people say, as many as hundreds of these wise men who studied astrology are the ones who saw the star, knew it didn't belong there, and it was leading them, so they followed it. Okay? Some believed for years before they actually came to this place that this star was in place. This star led them to this place. These people were reading and interpreting the stars. You can't figure this stuff out if you're just some idiot, right? Me and Billy Bob were sitting out there fishing the other night, and dadgum star showed up. We said, "Hey, what do you think? You want to jump in the truck and go see what that is?" "Well, let's go check it out." Would you believe it was a radio tower? I told him there's too many Budweiser cans in the back of the truck for us to be doing this kind of thing. That's not what this is. These are legitimate brain people doing this for a living in the king's court, okay? And the reason that's important is because when Daniel comes in, it's not Daniel up against a bunch of goofball idiots. It's Daniel against the best of the best of the best. Do you remember how this king got Daniel? He recruited the best from every nation he destroyed. He took the smart ones, he took the wise ones, he took the skilled ones, and he put them to work for him. These are the best of the best. So don't forget that. Let that mean something, all right? So looking at verse 3, let's see what happens here. Where are we at? "And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. I want to know. Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show you the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation," he's not going to tell them what the dream is. "If you are who you say you are," like he's nervous, okay? He doesn't want to be manipulated. He doesn't want to be twisted. He doesn't want someone to come up with some generic answer. He's concerned. And he's saying, if you can interpret it, why can't you tell me the dream? Right? You've done stuff crazy before. I've seen you do it. Tell me the dream and its interpretation. So that's his request, which is kind of crazy. So he says, "The word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb." He didn't say, if you come and tell me the dream and you're wrong, I'll tear you limb from limb. He says, if you can't do it, I'm going to tear you limb from limb. Okay, so he's a little upset. Now, here's the story about Nebuchadnezzar. This was not a threat. As we find out later, we see later in Daniel's life that Daniel is thrown into a den of lions. Anybody heard that story before? Daniel in the lion's den? Love this book. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel in the lion's den. Cool stuff. When you're a kid and you think about this kind of stuff, you're like, dude, I got to hear some more stories about lions. And these lions had been in there for a long time. And you know what they did for a living? They ate people that got thrown in there. Okay? That's what they did. It's like a zoo, but not really. It's like a zoo without a fence, but a big hole. And when you go to look in, someone pushes you in the back. So a little different. You know what I'm saying? Just a little different than going to the zoo, looking at the gorillas. Like you die and they eat you limb from limb. That's what Nebuchadnezzar's talking about. If you don't give me an answer right now, you're all going to die. He's pretty serious. Very, very serious. And it points to how bothered he is. It points to, like, me being a pastor and working with the type of guys I get to work with, that I'm blessed to work with. They're hilarious. I've literally had people ask me if they'll ease into the question, kind of drawing me to, and they're like, so do you feel like you have a connection with God? And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, he's my dad. So yeah, we do kind of have a connection. I mean, like, do you guys communicate and stuff? I'm like, well, he doesn't like say, hey, Matthew, how are you today? It's not like that. But yeah, I pray and he communicates to me in a way that I know it's him and I can follow him and be led by him. They're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm not kidding. You have no idea how many people have asked me for Powerball numbers. You have no idea how many people have asked me straight up for Powerball numbers. Like, and they're dead serious, not a joke. Once they find out I truly believe in God and I believe I have a connection, they're like, so, Powerball's getting pretty big. And I'm like, oh, Lord, here we go, I guess. I'm just saying, I'll split it with you. I'm like, oh, you would? Well, I appreciate that. And I'm sitting there thinking, do you think I would be doing this job so that I could get Powerball numbers to make millions of dollars to give to you? Is that what you're telling me? That's how this works? I've never thought of asking for Powerball numbers before? That's what you're telling me? That's the kind of questions I get to deal with people on. This guy is asking these people to give him the Powerball numbers before they happen. And if he doesn't, you're going to die. That's the situation here. Now, it'd be cool if you could, but if you don't, it's all over for you. So you can just feel the tension in the room just rising with everybody. And there's not 3 people in there. When he called for everyone, you're talking about a banquet hall filled with these special people that can do this, who've spent their entire life as adults trying to prove that they're the best of the best of the best. You know how we are. You know how guys are. Oh, yeah? I bet you I can do it better. I bet you I can do it faster. Lift that rock. I can lift 2 rocks. That's just how we are. Everything's competitive. Everything's a competition. It's the same here. So you've got a group of guys who've spent their whole adult life proving they're the best of the best at interpreting dreams and sorcery and all this kind of stuff. But now all of a sudden, he's flipped the coin and said, if you don't tell me right now, every single one of you are going to get torn limb from limb. So there's some sweaty palms. There's some men finding their feminine side, if you will. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, they're looking for a door, a window possibly. They're thinking about their choice of profession. Maybe it wasn't the best. I shouldn't have followed my dad into sorcery. I should have been a farmer. Daniel comes on the scene. So the first thing these guys say is, hey, basically we're going to need some more time. Right? From what we know historically, they had books. They had records. They had studies that they did so that things meant things. Like if a person had a dog in their dream, that it meant this, this, and this. If they had a bird in their dream, it meant this and this. So they gave those generic answers for all of those things. And for someone who was untrained or who was under them, it would totally suffice because they didn't really care if they were right or wrong. But with someone who's telling you, I'm going to rip you limb from limb, now all of a sudden, you have to be right. They're holding you to the fire and guaranteeing that you're right. So they're asking for more time. Either time to get out and hide or time to really think they can figure this out. But Nebuchadnezzar knows that's their plan. And he's so concerned, he believes if you're going to know, you're going to know now. If you don't know now, you're never going to know. And he throws the pressure to him. They respond in verse 4 and just say, please, O king, live forever. Now, as we go in and read the story, this is really funny. They say, O king, live forever. Common praise for a king. You're the greatest. You're eternal. No one will ever take your throne. That's what they're telling him. But here's what the dream tells him later. You can guess. You're going to die. So we know they don't know. Because that's not what you would say. Oh man, you're going to live forever. Not really. They have no idea what's coming or what's going to happen. So he makes his threat, and it's kind of a paradox because he's brilliant, he's visionary, he's generous, and on occasion he's even kind. But here, you get to see his other side. You get to see the crazy. You get to see the cruel, the sadistic, the angry, the arbitrary, the extremely violent side of Nebuchadnezzar. And their response is, please just give us more time. Now, as I said, these guys weren't idiots. Have you ever heard of the 7 wonders of the world? The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Has anybody ever heard of those? Some people believe they're possibly a myth, but it's one of the 7 wonders of the world where they had these big, giant, tall columns with these huge platforms on where they had these unbelievably amazing gardens that they grew. And it was just, for their time period, it was unbelievable. It's so easy for us as in our culture today to look at technology and believe that we've arrived. I honestly believe as a culture we're getting dumber when it comes to common sense and practical ability to do things. When people didn't have the advancement of technology, they had to do it. They had to figure it out. They had to actually measure things. They had to actually work it out mathematically. Perhaps you've heard me say this before, but some scientists would rather believe that aliens created the pyramids than to believe that some group of people prior to us was smarter. They can't give anyone any credit. How could a bunch of Incas or Mayans build these things? Or how could the Egyptians build this? Or how could they build that? How could any of these people build these amazing things when they were just a bunch of idiots? They weren't idiots. They weren't. They lived in a different time period that required more of this and more of that. They didn't have it as easy as we do. We're so afraid of what's going to invade our house through the internet. These guys were afraid of things that were going to invade their house through the window. Okay? This was different. You had brave men. You had courageous men. You had strong women. People that depended on each other for everything. This is not a weak culture. This is a strong culture. And we can learn so much from looking back. This king was gifted as a king, but he was a pagan king. And now God is speaking to this pagan king, which I think is amazing. Why would God choose to do that? Why would God want to communicate to this guy? Why would God want to use him? Why would God allow his people to be overthrown by this, to be put under this pressure, to be brought, all these things to be brought out of them? To bring them to a place, his people to a place of humility, so they would say, okay, I tap out. You're right, I can't do this on my own. We can't do this. It won't work because we say we're special. I'm not special. Things aren't going to fall in my lap because I'm special. I have to see you. That's what's special. When I see you and your grace and your mercy and your glory and your grandeur, that's what makes me be me. That's what puts me in my spot. Not things falling in my lap, me seeing you as the provider of all things. It relieves my stress. It gives me peace. It reminds me what true love is and joy. That's what I have to see. And all of this is taking place on this unbelievably large scale with these amazing people from all over the continent. And I think it's absolutely amazing to read. I hope it's entertaining to you as well. So, we see his threats. We see him telling them, this is what's going down. You need to get this figured out. So we get the pressure. I hope I've communicated the pressure. Now Daniel shows up in verse 14. Okay? And he has a proposal. Daniel's not at the place yet. He doesn't have a title. Okay? Daniel's not a sorcerer. He's not a warlock. He's not Harry Potter. Okay? He's just a guy who's in training. All right? So he doesn't have all these expectations and he doesn't have all these ideas that the other people should have. So how does Daniel respond? Verse 14. He says, Then Daniel replied with prudence and discretion to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He declared to Arioch, the king's captain, Why is the decree of the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the matter known to Daniel, and Daniel went in and requested the king to appoint a time that he might show the interpretation to the king. Okay? That's Daniel's response. Now this is what's cool. Daniel could have kept his nose out of it. Right? The expectations weren't on Daniel. Daniel heard what was going on through hearsay. And Daniel's like, I think I can help. What an idiot, right? What do we teach people at a young age or try to teach them? Now, honey, just mind your own business, right? Isn't that what we tell them? Don't go meddling in other people's affairs, right? Because what happens when you get down with the pigs? What happens? Tell me. You get dirty too. Isn't that what happens? Right? Don't go meddling in people's affairs. Daniel hears a situation. He's concerned. People are being slaughtered. Daniel's like, wow, this is a big deal. And just like the guys at work or at different places ask me for the Powerball numbers, thinking, I can help with that. God may choose to intervene. He may not. I've shared you some of the healing stories where I've seen people healed right in front of my eyes, and I've seen people look at me with a look on their face like, why are you touching my leg? This is the most awkward thing I've ever seen. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But Daniel says, I know a guy. Sounds like a great opportunity for me to step in and reveal to Nebuchadnezzar what's going on, because I know God knows. Matter of fact, I believe God's the one who's done it. That's the kind of faith God's asking us to have. Not for us to know everything. That's what we want. Faith to us is knowing everything. That's not faith. Faith is knowing the one who does and believing his choice is what's best no matter what. That's what faith is. Okay? So as we struggle through life and we have a plan and we have a direction, we believe this would be best, and then the plan diverts, what often happens? We feel crushed. We feel distraught, maybe even left out by God, when the fact is, the reason we feel left out by God is we think he left us, but the fact is we left him. His plan is true. His plan is sure. No matter what it looks like, no matter how many regrets you have, how many mistakes you've made, it doesn't change the plan of God. God does what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, and it's always for his glory and our joy. Never forget that. Daniel believed that. Even if I die in this, it's going to be for God's glory. And you think, well, where's the joy? I don't think anyone on this earth, if you gave them the opportunity, in the case of the Matrix, the red pill or the blue pill, that you could step into absolute bliss of perfection and understanding and remove all the stress you've ever thought possible from your life to take this pill. How many people would say no to that and believe that would be torture to do that? People that have faith in God and believe that his place is better than ours are not afraid of death as much as us. I believe everyone's afraid of death, like the actual experience of death. But the desire beyond for the Christian is totally different. The desire for the Christian is not, it's not like the suicidal person who's like, just get me out of here, I can't take this anymore. For the Christian, it's like, you know what? It's so much better somewhere else. I'm not going to take my life or do anything stupid to get there, but it sure does sound nice. It sure sounds wonderful. And when you think of your loved ones, I don't want to break it to you, and if you have one of these bumper stickers or one of these magnets on your refrigerator, please don't send me a dirty text message that you hate my guts. But if your loved one died, it's not because God needed another angel. It's cute and it sounds really, really, really sweet and makes you feel better. It's because in God's great sovereign plan, he chose to call them home to himself. That's it. He didn't need them for anything. We're the ones who need everything from him, okay? And I'm not being a jerk. God didn't need another angel. He's got plenty of angels. He wanted your special loved one with him and sought it best that they be with him. That should give you more pleasure. That should give you more joy and more peace than believing they got a set of wings. Ring, 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 right? Like Tom and Jerry. I remember everything I learned about heaven was on Saturday morning cartoons when I was a kid, right? Smack, ling, 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 just immediate harp action, just flying away. That's what it's like, okay? So that's as accurate as a picture as you're going to get, all right? So with all this going on, Daniel sticks his nose in here, and he says, hey, let me help you out. So if we see here in this prayer, look at verse 17. Then Daniel went to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, and told them to seek mercy from God of heaven concerning the mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said. And he goes through this prayer. Just listen to it. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise. For you have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we ask of you. For you have made known to us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said to him, Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show the king the interpretation. He has absolute confidence that God told him what's going to happen. And he's prepared. And he says, let's go. Let's go see the king. Let's go see this monster. I would encourage you to walk through this prayer. The Bible's full of prayers. Like we've said before, sometimes we quote prayers, sometimes we read prayers, sometimes we just memorize prayers. And they're good if we know what they're meaning and what they're saying. But this is an absolutely beautiful prayer because all it does is reveal what we truly believe about God. And sometimes what prayer does, it allows you to hear yourself say what you believe. Because oftentimes, you're just here thinking. It's 90% emotional, 10% truth. 90% feeling, 90% what if, 10% reality. When you speak it and you say, I don't believe God cares, I don't believe He loves me, that's hard to say as a Christian. I believe God has brought me out here to die alone. It's hard to say as a Christian. But when you speak words of truth, and this isn't name it and claim it, please don't. Oh, pastor told me I just have to say in Jesus' name and I'll get a pink Cadillac from Mary Kay. That is not what I'm saying, even though that would be awesome. Okay? These words are the heart of the Christian life. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times, He changes seasons. He removes kings, He sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with Him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we ask of you, for you have made known to me the king's matter. Praise. Wonderful praise. We talked last week about how it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to doubt. It's okay to fear, because this is who God truly is. And sometimes we never get to experience the fact of who He truly is until we have those doubts, until we have those questions that lead us to this place. Daniel was in a place of being estranged from everything he knew and loved, everything that brought him confidence and hope. But now he's in a different place, a place where God has to be real. When Rachel spent a month in Myanmar, Burma, which was illegal for Christians to be, she said every night when she went to bed, she would work with those street kids during the day, and at night she would go to bed. And she said she literally had to pray herself to sleep. She said, I could feel evil physically all around me. And I believe her. She said, you have no idea what it's like there. You have no idea what it's like to be, what they say here, in darkness. I was afraid. She said, I was in a safe place. I wasn't on the street. I was in a safe place with good people, and I was scared to close my eyes because I could feel things all around me. And I had to pray myself to sleep every single night. Those places exist. That reality is true for a lot of people. And we need to understand that the God of heaven knows that, and He is the light that is in the darkness. He doesn't say there is no darkness. He says the darkness is real. But I'll tell you something. I know what the darkness is, and I know what it's not. I know what it can do, and I know what it can't. And if you're a child of mine, you are safe in my will, no matter where that place might be. Now, as we wrap this up, we see that the title God of Heaven that Daniel refers to is very infrequent up before this exile. It's not something that gets used a lot, but it was especially appropriate here because if you remember, what kind of people are we dealing with? What are all the wise men? How are they gaining their wisdom? Through spirits, through studying of the stars, all this kind of things. And Daniel refers to him when he talks to the king as the God of heaven. What he's ultimately saying is, you guys are looking at the stars. That's cool. But guess what? Guess who I'm talking to? The guy who put the stars there. So I think I'm a little better off than you. You see that really pretty star way out there that you like and you use it to read and interpret things? I know the guy that loves that star. I know the guy that named it. I know the one who threw it into existence. So when he refers to this God of heaven, it has real meaning. It's not just something like, oh, Father God, oh, Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. It's specific for them to know He is the God of the heavens. What you can and you cannot see, He is above and He is beyond that. And that's the one that Daniel is talking to. I end this with one question before I take some of your questions. Will you trust the one who knows? That's the question you have to answer. This is a very simple question. It's a very simple answer. Will I trust the one who knows? Will I put my life and my hope in His hands? And will I trust Him? Will I let myself see the reality of His hand in my life up to this point? Most people believe they become a Christian and all of a sudden God gets involved. Nebuchadnezzar is a pagan king and God is heavily involved in his life. Sometimes I can see God's actions more before I knew Him publicly than when I became to know Him publicly. Because for a while there I got real religious and smart and Christianly, right? Prior to that I could see God working through my life in dangerous situations, times when I should not be here anymore, where I could see there's no explanation other than the hand of God. I mean, I'm a ninja. I pretty much am a ninja. Well, not really, but I'd like to think I'm a ninja. That's why I'm here today. No, I'm really not a ninja. God's hand has been on my life throughout. The only explanation would be that I'm a ninja. So if you don't believe in God, then I'm a ninja. If you do believe in God, then it's God's hand that's been on my life. Because I look back and I see nothing but miracles happening to bring me to the place that I'm at. Miracles. Miracles. And I'm so grateful for that. So, question for you, will you trust the one who knows?